All right. Can everyone hear me? Yep. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining this session, although it's the first one. I was a little bit scared because when you have the first session and it's a Drupal camp, a Drupal con, there is always a party and it's always a risk that not a lot of people show up. This is going to be a little bit about, or a lot, not a little bit about Decoupled, and in particular, how companies and teams and big and small teams do it in 2022. Why am I talking about this? Well, I've worked as technical architect for a few years with Akia, until quite recently, actually. I've worked for BBC as a technical architect as well. I was senior developer on Capgemini, where we built really big projects. There is every project or every company I've joined, they always say this is the biggest project in Drupal. If it's in UK or if it's in the world, whatever. I'm sure I will join a new team soon, or hopefully not soon, because I just joined Pantheon, and they will say the same. But if I think I'm entitled to talk about this, is because I've done a few things on Decoupled in the last years. Actually, even before Decoupled was getting popular, right? Because it looks like everyone is talking about Decoupled these days, but there is a lot of unknowns on why should I do this, and that's one of the reasons of this talk. I've been in the Drupal community and doing Drupal for 2 decades. I've lost the account. My Drupal account says 15 years. It's been a little bit more, but roughly 15 years. And if I don't lose my voice today, I want to talk about Decoupled. This picture, I really like it. I always use it because it symbolizes what I think it has to be, something like a Drupal camp, a project meetup, like a company retreat. It's about work, it's about learning, but it's about mental health as well, and physical exercise, and making sure that you are not just doing work, right? Also trying to take care of yourself and your colleagues. So please do it. If you want to Twitter, if you want to tweet me to tell me how bad I am doing it or how good, please. This is my Twitter and this is my website. As I was saying, I'm a developer advocate. I'm still learning what it is being a developer advocate. I've been doing so many years, software, just being in my room where I feel comfortable. So me jumping in here and talking to, it's a big effort, right? But I love it. I've been always attracted to the marketing side and communicate what I think I know. Very quick about my company, because they are paying me to be here. I'm going to probably ask you a lot of questions. So if you thought you were going to be sitting there just relaxing for the next 30, 40 minutes, you are completely wrong, right? So how many of you know Pantheon? Oh, that's good. Okay. They are big in the US. We are trying to come in Europe and show the products. I don't want to talk a lot about this because, again, this is about Decoupled, not about Pantheon. But they have really cool things like a different approach to the way they do multi-sites, right? Or spinning up new environments for developers, etc., etc. But you know about Pantheon. This is my talk, but it is your rules. I found that I have this, so I can throw it to someone, right? So if you have questions during the session, please ask me. It is a good distressing exercise for me. Don't throw me things. I was not expecting to have this, but I'm not assuming any prior knowledge of anything, right? If you know about Decoupled, I hope you will get something out of this talk. If you don't know anything, I hope you will get as well some things. But in general, I will talk about a few things that I've been doing in the last 10 years. A little disclaimer, I may not be able to talk about all the customers. I will talk about specific cases, right? But I don't necessarily have the permission to talk about some of the projects I've worked. But if you are curious about some specific use cases, come and ask me. I will probably forget and I will mention the customers anyway. So this is going to be the summary. Again, around 30 minutes, let's talk a little bit about what is decouple, why everyone is talking about this. A little bit of history, because to know why we are talking about this, we need to know where we are coming from. The whys and whens, why you should be using it, and when you shouldn't be using it, and the types of decoupling that I'm sure all of you or most of you know. But I'm going to use these types to show you some of the things that I've been doing the last decade. It's not exhaustive. There are talks that talk specifically about a lot more theory, right? My idea is not talking about theory, it's more talking about this from a practical point of view and show specific problems which can be useful for you. I forgot something about... But anyway, if you look around about what is decouple, you will find things like that in Quora. Quora is very funny because you find every kind of stuff, right? This made me laugh. Headless is a new buzzword. You don't really need it, but people like to keep repeating headless CMS and API, even though there is no real benefit. Okay. Well, there is a point to that, but I don't completely agree. But let's go through the next slides, and I will show you why. But what I want you to take from this is that, yes, it's true that everyone is talking about decouple, but how to apply it and when you apply it, it is a big step, right? And you should be confident that you are doing whatever you are doing. I like it a little bit more, this definition from Content Stack, which compares decouple to the concerns of HTML and CSS in a way that both of them live in isolation, but both of them need to interact, right? It's not a perfect definition, but to have it in your mind what we are talking about, decouple, I think is a good approach. And this one is really good because it talks about components, right? It's a development framework that allows components to remain autonomous and unaware of each other, performing their tasks independently. This, to me, is the perfect definition because we are talking about two, not necessarily systems. It could be even the same system, and I will show you in a few minutes what I'm talking about. But components that are well isolated, and it has many benefits to that, and that they are able to talk between them without knowing a lot between them, right? And if you are still confused, this is not my image. This is from that URL here, but it symbolizes high level what we are talking about. Again, I'm not going to go into theory of the decouple and the different kind of decouple in an exhaustive way. And the same for this graph. It symbolizes what a traditional monolithic approach is versus what we have on the right, which is the decouple approach. And this architecture can complicate a lot more, right? This is just a simple simplification of what we think about the decouple, where we have these two components and they talk to each other. There is some server-side or PHP, whatever, on one side, and there is the other framework, the other component, front end, whatever we have on the other side, on the green box. I know what I was forgetting. I am Spanish. Sometimes I talk super fast. So if I am doing it, just raise your hand, okay? Because otherwise we're going to finish this in 15 minutes. I was talking about knowing where we are going, and you need to know where we are coming. Again, you probably know this because you are a smart bunch, you know about Pantheon, you know about decouple. This thing, we are talking about decouple since 2011. When people were not even aware of what is decouple, right? I think it was one of the first communities starting to talk about this. But even before the whiskey, which is called, or WSCCI, they call it whiskey, I don't know. But, I hate acronyms. It's the Web Services and Context Core Initiative. As prior to this, as you know, Drupal was working in isolation. Everyone was working on, this is cool. I'm going to work on this technology. Since that started, it appeared what is called the Drupal initiatives, where you group these people and you start working on specific things for the next version of Drupal, right? Instead of just everyone working on whatever they thought it was exciting, which still happens, but this is a more organized way. Decoupled, or the Whiskey Initiative, was just the second one, so really historic. And the first one, you probably know as well about this one, because it's the configuration management in Drupal, which is as well game-changing for Drupal, right? I was saying that even before people were talking about Decoupled, we were actually doing Decoupled. This is not exactly Decoupled, but in Drupal 7, we had APIs at the end, right? And there was that need in there to do Decoupled. It's not that suddenly Dries decided, or the community around Dries and everyone decided, let's talk about how we do this thing because it's cool, right? This is not about that. Before we even were talking about this, there were modules like auth-cache that it was really cool because this was solving a real problem, which is if you have a high traffic site and you need to cache it and you have authenticated users, right? You have a problem. Why? Because the moment you are displaying something, not just in a profile page, but also maybe on the menu or somewhere around their page, that needs to be specific for a user, that is going to invalidate the caching, right? Auth-cache was solving that problem, just giving you a kind of placeholder where you will place your JavaScript. It will load everything, it will be cached, and then it will use JavaScript to go back to the backend and get the information that they want, right? So it was very early days of the couple, but it was, again, it was solving a problem. We are not talking about this just for the sake of talking. This particular case, we use it at BBC, in particular at BBC Good Food. And the reason is because it was a huge website, huge in terms of content, but huge as well in terms of traffic. I'm talking about 7 million users per day on peak traffic days, like on Pancake Day or Christmas, which was a peak day for the website. And it's an important day, because if the site goes down at that moment, it was generating like 40% of the revenue for the rest of the year. So imagine that you don't do a good architecture and you find that day that the site goes down, right? And that's why, as well, knowing what we are talking about, knowing the different solutions is important, because you can get in big trouble. This was really rudimentary. It was solving a problem very specific, but it had their limitations, right? Later on, we did the same approach. We extended it with React. And again, this was 5-6 years ago, which it looked like the technology was still not mature. And we were always all talking about this, but not really understanding where we were getting into. Okay, but why are we talking again about Decoupled? It's amazing, right? It's an amazing technology. We all like to play with toys. We all like to play with new frameworks like Gatsby, Next.js, Vue.js. There is one new coming, Remix, and I'm sure we will have a new one when we go back home on Friday. But why are we talking about this, really? About a part of all the theory that I was talking before, is because the technology is mature at the moment, and it is solving real problems, and it can solve you some situations. What it is solving? Well, it can be solving, and this is a list of things. It's not exhaustive, but having some of them and knowing them, it can help you make a decision. Shall I go to for a decouple approach, or shall I do something more conventional, or maybe a mix of both? Faster websites, we all know all the marketing from Gatsby and from these frameworks, that they are super fast. Better user experience at the end is what it counts, your users. Having someone specialize on front-end, which is just focusing on front-end, is probably going to help on focusing on that instead of focusing on what we've been talking about for ages as well, Drupalisms, right? We've been trying to get away from Drupalisms. This could be the moment. But we have more complex architectures like multiple devices, mobiles. Everyone is familiar, right, with mobile applications. This can be fed from Drupal, as you all know, and it can be just reducing the content that you have, because the complexity at the end is having to manage the same content for different sources. Why not having the single source of truth, which will be Drupal, and sharing this? And a lot more complex scenarios, not just mobile. I'm talking about IoT devices. I'm talking about street billboards. Do you know the New York Underground? This is a pretty cool case which is hosted in Akia. And pretty much is the whole underground, the whole, when you go to the underground and you check when is my train coming, tells you 5 minutes. This is managed by Drupal. So it's a huge amount of IoT devices connecting to a central server, sending huge amounts of traffic, updating all the information about all the trains, right? And telling you when you are in the place, getting the train, if it's taking 5 minutes or 3 minutes or whatever. So I think it's pretty impressive. And at the end, what we need is a better developer experience. I was talking about the HTML and CSS example. It's really good, but we all remember when we started, or at least I started in that way on PHP. I was coming from Java and suddenly having a file where I could throw everything, HTML, PHP, and make the pages dynamic. It was amazing, right? It was amazing for me discovering the theme, but after years, you discover that having the separation of concerns is really important, because it helps you not getting crazy and collaborate with other developers. I see Decoupled as an evolution of that, where you are actually going to the extreme. You are completely separating those two concerns. And I will show you an example of a project that we did a few months ago, where we actually had two teams working in parallel. Security is an important one. And I'm talking a lot about enterprise and about my experience, although the last 10 years I'm coming from that world. I moved to London just to work on big projects and see how the big boys were doing it. My background is coming as well from doing small websites. And I still do small things, right, here and there. Security, for example, is a big thing if you are on that case, because you are isolating without having to pay expensive CDN like Cloudflare, or you could isolate your backend and forget about possible hackings, right? Because at the end, what you are showing is potentially, and this, I'm talking about a specific case of going full decouple, right? But you are isolating the front end from the backend, and good luck trying to hack that, right? You will have cases where you will start making the architecture more complicated and then connecting from your front end with queries, etc. Then we go on to more dangerous territory. But the idea is that isolating both is going to give you a little bit of peace of mind. And for example, things like contrib updates or core upgrades, where everyone remembers the Drupal Mageddon, right? I was there that night, and it was a big one. You had to rush and upgrade. Because it was a huge security risk, you could have your sites hacked. And back then, when I was working, I said I was not going to. It was Royal Mail. It was a big, and I said I was not going to talk about customers. It was a big. It's a big company in UK, and they have a huge database of users. Right? Imagine that you have a security penetration with that. This thing is amazing in terms of. I have a few projects online at the moment, and I haven't worried about upgrading them for months. And I know there are security upgrades on my contrib modules and a few updates as well on the core, but I'm completely, because I don't even have online the code base, right? It's living on my laptop, and when I need it, I push some updates. Again, this is a specific case. It can get a lot more complicated. One of the reasons as well to do Decoupled is the talent crisis that we have, right? I have these numbers from different sources, the Register and DAX. I don't know how true, but I think it's a good approximation. I don't completely like, especially the JavaScript one, but okay, it's an approximation. If you think about PHP developers, it's about 6 million. It's maybe has grown, it's maybe less now. But if you think about the JavaScript, it's a lot more people, right? So if you need to hire people for your project, or you need colleagues to help you delivering something, you're going to have a better time if you go for the JavaScript world. And I don't completely like it because I don't know how they are making this number. If they mean everyone that has written a line of JavaScript is a JavaScript developer, or they mean that everyone who is working on full on Java, React, or some of those frameworks. But in any case, even if it's just a little bit of knowledge of JavaScript, it's going to be easier to hire than someone from the Ruby community, for example, right? Who's familiar with this? What are we going to have next week, right? Remix was talking. I don't know if Remix is not here. If you start a new, it feels tired, like you start now with Drupal 9, Drupal 10, and you build this whole new project, and in 2 years, you will have to tell your customer, look, you have to change the technology. I know Drupal 9 and Drupal 10 is changing that, right? But anyway, it's a risk that if you build the whole thing as a monolith, you will have to rebuild everything whenever some technology changes, right? So, good case, you are migrating from Drupal 7, maybe it's a good idea to do the jump into these two concerns. For sure, it's going to make easier for you in 2 or 3 years. Say that the customer wants a big change on whatever on the front end. You don't need to change anything on the back end. It's going to be a much smaller change for sure. I was talking about speed. Is everyone familiar with Core Vitals? I told you, you are not going to sit there. Yes, just watching. Core Vitals is Google from 10, 11 years ago. He was pushing into, you have to make your websites faster. You have to make your websites more performant. But now it's actually full on that, right? And Core Vitals is a set of tools that is giving you some information on how rubbish is your website. And it's giving you information on how rubbish because I'm sure if you try your website, however you have architected it, you will find things that you can improve with Core Vitals. So if it's for SEO purposes, you should worry about performance. If it's just user experience, because at the end, even if you have an amazing product and your users are only going to find it in your website, if they find a really bad user experience, you know what is going to happen, right? So after 4 seconds, you may just buy it because you don't have any other option, but you will leave. And I was talking about BBC, and in particular about BBC Good Food. The problem that we were having with Othcast was not just just get rid of the user, because at the end, and this is normally a pattern, it's a small percentage of your websites, it's just maybe a 5% of users. On our case, it was a 10% of the users that we had in the website. But that 10% actually accounted for 90% of the performance, right? So imagine that you get rid of those users. Imagine how fast your website is going, especially on a big day like Pancake Day, right? But obviously you cannot get rid of those users. So how do you solve that? The solution at that point was using Othcast. And it was very limited because what happens with the profile page, right? So we evolved that into a React application, doing a semi-decouple approach. And just imagine, in terms of money, we are talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars or euros per quarter, right? Hundreds. Imagine if you reduce that by 90%. So you can focus on your team, you can focus on build features, on build innovation, which is at the end what the customer or your team wants and what they are paying you for. And in general, all these things on why is like, it's giving you some clues on when you should be decoupling. Performance, team collaboration. Again, I was talking about Twig. Was trying to do this separation of concerns. It did it in a way, but it's not perfect, right? We are still having some Drupalisms that we need to get used to if someone is coming from outside of the Drupal world and they want to jump into this. And they still share the same code base. Yeah, and everything that I was mentioning on the whys. But when you should not decoupling, I think it's even more important. You have to think that the complexity of doing this is potentially going to escalate, and this may not apply to you. That like this is used by case by case basis, right? Maybe your site is completely, you don't use any dynamic content at all, so you don't have to worry about that. Just go full decoupled, because you don't have to worry about logging. You don't have to worry about user-generated content. But if you have comments on your website, which is very common scenario, how do you solve that, right? Drupal was super easy. Like in 10 minutes, you have your content type and you have comments. You have to worry just about theming it. If you go full decoupled, you will need to find a solution for that. And in general, if you are thinking about going decoupled, be whatever, semi-couple, full decouple, just talk to business, talk to your customer, talk to your team. Is it really solving the problem, or solving a specific problem? It's just a toy that you want to try, which is as well a good solution, a good answer, right? Sometimes actually you want to keep your team motivated, and why not? I'm not saying go full decouple just for the sake of it, but there are some approaches that I will show you that can give you some fresh air to keep your team, your skills sharp, which at the end we are developers, we need to keep going on that. And again, it will bring some benefits to your site. Again, I'm not going to go on to full theory on what is decouple, how the different types of decouple. I mean, we know fully decoupled, semi-decoupled, then some people are talking about headless. I'm not going to get into these things. So to me, what matters is the two ways that we can do it. We can go full on, or we can go semi-decoupled approach, which I will show you some examples on how to do it. Or we can even go hybrid solution. On the example I was talking at PVC, on Top Gear, we had another project where we were sending some content as well to the mobile application, right? And Drupal was there living. We didn't have to change much a part of the endpoints. And again, this was much earlier than decouple. And at the end, you can build these hybrid applications, which at the end they have Drupal at the core, and you can have many options, a big ecosystem around things like recipes on BBC Good Food. You could, for example, if you are cooking, it's a really bad time to have your computer around because probably your hands are full of, oil, whatever. But we have these devices now, which are Alexas and whatnots. So this was a case where we exported the content as it was into Alexa. Obviously, you need to adapt a little bit the content because it won't work straight away into a completely different ecosystem like Alexa or like voice is. But it gives you a lot of flexibility. You are familiar with this? A lot of the frameworks that you can use to go full decouple, again, mobile applications, and you should be familiar as well with, or if you are not, that's why I'm here. The first problem that you will have is if you go full decouple is where do we host this? Because traditionally, a Drupal site, you just worry about whatever hosting and just put it there, happy days. But now we are adding an extra component. That extra component can live on your Drupal hosting, right? But the more we complicate the infrastructure, we need to decide where we are going to host that. And you need to think really careful about this because if you go for, let's say, AWS or some DIY, you will have to worry about uptime, about things that you will normally not have to worry about Drupal, right? And something goes down. I don't want to be on, well, I was on that situation with VC as well because we built a Kubernetes project for the mobile application. It was a really cool project, but we spent several weeks building a Kubernetes environment where, Drupal was sending the content, then that environment with some caching was sending that to the mobile application, etc., right? In general, we are talking about higher complexity, and normally customers are not going to be happy about paying for that, right? Not necessarily. You will have to have a bad time trying to explain them why they need to go for that, if you are already trying to convince them to go for the decouple. I was talking as well as about login, comments, preview content. Preview content is a big one. It's something that we take for granted in Drupal. You're writing on something, and before you publish it, you want to see how it looks. What happens in the decouple? Good news is that we have some frameworks and some solutions which are trying to solve that without having to reinvent the wheel. Because at the end, what I'm talking about going full decoupled is that you will probably have to reinvent the wheel on some things. But luckily enough, we are working on a open source community, and people, companies, are building amazing things. I'm super excited about this one, Next Drupal. For one, because I'm excited about Next, yes. I've been for months trying to get into the technology. But it's solving things like previewing, right? And it's also solving the learning curve. So one of the big things that you will have to do here, if you are jumping from traditional monolith to do the decouple, is you will need some time to experiment, you will need some time to learn, and you will make mistakes. All of this, you can reduce the risk, because at the end it's a risk, going for any of these frameworks like Contenta CMS. Contenta has been in the market for, I don't know, 6-7 years. I think it was, I don't remember if it was Lulabot or some Arcel and Grove, some companies, again, involved on the same as Next Drupal. And Vue.js is a different approach. It's more giving you a few modules that are going to give you some advantages and some quick gains in order to connect things, right? As opposed to Contenta and Next. Next, obviously, is Next.js. Contenta is not prescribing specific technology. It's giving you a Drupal distribution, which is API ready and is really connected to different, you can use Angular, you can use React. So, and this is a curious particular case, because you wouldn't think this as the decouple, but I personally think this as a decouple approach. Why? If you think Gatsby, what is doing Gatsby? Gatsby is just exporting all your content and putting maybe on Netlify or some other CDN. This is doing the same, right? In a much more simple way, because you can get your Drupal site, install your Tome, and just export it, right? And that export is going to be HTML or JSON. That JSON, you can use it, for example, for React, for any other framework. But what I really like it is that you can just get the HTML and put it on Netlify. And I've gone from a website loading in 3-something seconds to load in less than half a second. I don't remember exactly the names, right? Because it's just HTML, and you are putting it on a CDN, which by definition, they are super fast serving those files, right? And I say it's a decouple to me solution because I was talking to Sam Mortensen, which is the main developer of this one. I think there are some things that we can do to make Tome even better, which is adding an extra layer where you could add some JavaScript and from your CDN actually have some content that loads in a dynamic way. So although by definition Tome is not dynamic content, I would like to see Tome evolving on that direction. Maybe in extra modules or things like that. I don't think it will be difficult. And I will talk about one module as well in a second that I think we could apply on Tome to achieve that. Partially decoupled, I was already talking about the BBC Good Food case, is where we keep Drupal as the main frontend, and then some parts of that frontend connect in an independent way to the backend. Normally, you will have to do this in a custom way, as we have to do with BBC Good Food. We build the whole profile page for the user with React. But there are solutions like, in particular, PDB, that is going to allow you to just get small blocks and treat them like completely isolated components, as I was talking on the beginning. That's why I like the definition of components, because in this case, for example, we are not talking about a completely different environment or a completely different system. Here is the same Drupal. We don't have to talk about a different infrastructure, but we are embedding, for example, Angular or React on the website. And one place where we applied this a few months ago was imagine two agencies working together, where one is really good on front end and the other one is really good on back end. If they have to collaborate together, as it has been the case until now, that creates a lot of friction, right? Friction in terms of how do we share the code, what do you give me, how do I test it, how are you going to test it? And in my experience, in all these years, every time I've worked with two agencies, it has created a massive friction, right? Even in some projects, risking derailing the project because it was creating crashes. Although we work in completely isolation on different areas of the website, it turns out that when you need to deploy, you go together, right? PDB is giving you the option to isolate completely the front end, and your backend team is only going to work on the API, right? And here, the only thing that you have to have in consideration is make sure that your API is documented and everyone agrees how it has to behave. Otherwise you will end up discussing about I'm expecting this, you are giving me this, have a good documentation around the API. And yeah, I think this is the first project that we really delivered the backend. The front-end agency worked on this, and it was like magic. No issues around friction or anything like that. Which is what we've been talking about, tweak and everything, right? This is the dream. Yeah, focus on keeping at the end the best of both worlds and lower the learning curve. I was talking about if you are going to jump into React or Angular or Remix, you will have to learn about this. If you start a new project and you are telling the customer or you need to train the team on this is going to slow down, how about we bring someone who is a specialist on this and we work together, right? And that's it from my side. We are going to have the couple on, I'm done. I will leave some minutes for questions. We're going to have the coupled in Pantheon as well. I was talking about the infrastructure. One of the things I don't like is having to worry about Kubernetes and all that stuff, even if more the reason if I'm gonna have to worry about learning React or other technologies, right? Pantheon is coming with a full solution, which is connecting the two systems. You don't have to worry about uptimes, about anything else. So if you're interested, go to that URL. It's coming in May, early access. And thank you, everyone. Thanks the sponsors for making this possible, and thanks the organization for inviting me. Again, if you want to share any feedback, you can do it, or I can throw you the Any questions? I'm gonna try this. You are close.
So thanks for the presentation. I'm curious about the solution that you will be proposing with Pantheon. So if you have more details on exactly what it does, because
Yeah.
I don't see it.
Yeah, I said I joined Pantheon like a few weeks ago. One of the things I'm very impressed is how Pantheon solves things for developers, right? We are building tools for developers. And for example, I was talking about multi-site. Multi-site traditionally is a pain in the and the way they solve it is super user-friendly. You have a nice UI. You just go through clicks. I want this environment, spin it up. I want to connect this new site. This site is going to be isolated as opposed to multi-site. The approach with Decoupled is going to be pretty much the same in the way of providing a very user-friendly UI, right? So instead of having to worry about the infrastructure underlying and all the complexity, you already have enough problems about, worry about React and Vue.js and whatnot. Pantheon is taking care of that, and it's giving you a nice UI where you just have to worry about connect this with that. It's going to be as simple as that. It's early access at the moment, right? This is what I've seen. This is going to be the dream, but we'll see.
Okay, so technically, what I'm still not picturing in my mind exactly what it were like. I'm developing like an headless application. What does it do for me? Will it like?
If you have two systems, which is normally the case, you will have Node.js, which is going to be serving your front-end application, and then you will have your backend, right? So this is going to give you a solution where everything is integrated, right? So you don't have to worry about hosting your React somewhere else, hosting Drupal somewhere else. You can have everything together.
Okay.
And if you have something like my React application is not working, you can go to Pantheon and tell them, look, this is not working. Don't tell them that I told you this, but this is the idea, right? Having a single source of truth, and if something goes down, not having to fight with different vendors to solve the stuff.
I see the advantages of this. Okay, thanks.
It makes sense. Again, this is, if you want to try Pantheon, this is as easy as go to the website, register, and you can spin up new domains, right? Whenever this comes, it will be the same. Just you can try it for free. So if you have questions, to be honest, if you read all the marketing stuff, you will finish the same way. I've read a lot about upstreams and multi-site and how they solve it, but until I arrive and I start to try it myself, I said, oh shit, okay, is this about it? Oh, sorry. It's not recorded, right? Questions? Give me a challenge, I want to throw it. No? Cool. If you have any questions anywhere, I'll be around the coffee area. So thank you very much.
Thanks. Here you go.